o'clock. I think let's begin. So, Chitaniva, over to you.
Yes, sure. So, hello everyone. Welcome to our workshop that is channeling your anger. A very, very welcome to you. And first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Chitraniva Mukherjee, and I'm the co-host for you today. And I'm working under MindTribe in as a counselor, and I do specialize in narcissistic abuse, stress, anxiety, depression, and overthinking. And yes, do keep your mic on mute and your video off. And if you really want to tell anything, you can just raise your hand or write it in the chat box. Okay, so yeah, over to you, Melu.
Alright, thank you, Chitaniva, and good morning, everyone. I am your host for the day. My name is Melo Sequera. I'm also a psychologist at MindTribe. My areas of specialization are overthinking, stress, relationship issues, and depression. And my goal is to help people along with their journey of mental health. So, I will be hosting this workshop on anger today, and I'm looking forward to interacting with you all and having a great discussion on the same. Before we begin, there are a few rules to keep in mind. So, first of all, this workshop is copyrighted by MindTribe. It is our intellectual property, so please do not screenshot anything or record anything. You can take down notes for yourself if you'd like to, so feel free to do that. And as Chitaniva said, please keep your mic and camera off during the workshop. And if you'd like to say something, please raise your hand and unmute when you are asked to. You can always put your queries in the chat box. They will be addressed. And lastly, this workshop is being recorded, and it's just the audio along with the presentation that is being recorded. So just keep that in mind. If you are unmuting and speaking, it will be on the video recording. And this is something that we will be sharing on our YouTube channel in the upcoming days. With that, let's move on to the workshop itself. So, we'll be covering a few topics today, so let's take a look at that. First is I will be giving an introduction to anger, what it is, and how it affects us. Next, we'll be discussing a little bit about why people get angry. So, what are the reasons behind anger? We'll also talk about the thoughts that contribute to anger. Then we'll be moving on to the core point of this workshop, which is the benefits of anger, as well as how to use anger in a healthy way. So, this workshop is Shami. Chitaniva, could you confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, you are perfectly audible.
Okay, Shami, it might be a issue with your network or something. So you can try switching your network, or you can try to leave the meeting and rejoin. Okay. All right. So as I was saying, this workshop is not exactly about managing or controlling your anger. It is going to be about how you can deal with it or have a healthier relationship with your anger. It's also not about dealing with other angry people in your life. We're going to be talking about our own anger. But maybe by learning more about anger itself, you might be able to understand other people's anger as well. So I hope that there will be something new that you learn through this workshop. So, before I tell you about anger, I'd like to know from you, what are the words that come to your mind when you hear anger? You can put some words in the chat box, whatever comes to your mind first when you think of anger. Okay, two people said frustration immediately, irritability, resentment, rush of energy, that's so true, hate, catharsis. Yes, we will be talking about catharsis as well in this workshop. Hurt, Yes, anger can be related to other negative emotions as well, so sometimes you might feel hurt too, or end up hurting somebody else. That is very true. Violence and destroying, those are some very interesting answers. Headache, yes, anger can have a physical effect too. Abuse, crying, can't control our choice of words, fear. Right, these are all great answers, and thank you so much for interacting and being so active on the chat, everyone. I think these are all really relatable and just a really normal part of our human experience, that when we experience anger, it might not just be anger. There's so many different things that are connected to it, and there's so many unique ways of experiencing it. So now let's get into what is anger. Now, anger is a normal human emotion. So it is a feeling state that arises in response to a variety of situations. So when things go wrong, when somebody's hurt you, when then there's something you wanted to do but something else came in the way, or maybe you were driving and somebody else did something dangerous. So anger can come up in a variety of situations, and it's a really normal response. Now, the interesting thing is, a lot of you said things like destruction or violence or just these kind of really behavioral things when I asked you what words anger remind you of. And the thing is that yes, anger can come with that desire to lash out, to hurt something or someone, but anger itself at its core is just an emotion. So what I'm trying to say is that feelings are separate from the behavior itself. For example, crying is something that we link to sadness, but we also cry when we're happy, or like somebody said, they might cry when they're angry. So that behavior of crying is not just linked to sadness. It doesn't just come out of sadness. And similarly, things like violence or destruction, those desires can sometimes come out of anger, but sometimes people do those things because they want control or they want power. So anger is not the only reason that people might be violent. So sometimes when we thinking of anger, we end up thinking that violence is just another part of it, and it is it comes with it all the time, but that's not the case. We don't always have to act on that and be destructive. There are other outlets for anger as well. I think this example might help us understand this better, that sometimes when we're scared, we get that desire to run away. We feel like avoiding whatever it is that's scaring us. Like we might have a presentation to do, we don't want to go in front of the whole class and talk, but despite that fear, we might choose to do something else. So similarly, even with anger, even if we feel like doing something destructive, and even if anger can really end up hurting our life, we can make that choice to do something different. So I see a question in the chat, so I'd just like to address that. Anger is just for a few minutes or last a long time? So usually all the emotions that we experience, especially the more intense ones, our body can't hold on to that intense emotion for a long time, because it has a physiological aspect too, right? Like your body is pumping out adrenaline or other neurotransmitters and things like that. So your body can't be in that state of high intense emotion for a very long time. So anger would not really last for that long, but of course depending on how you handle it, you might still feel upset or angry about something that happened, right? But the intensity of it would go down over time. And of course, as we move on, we'll also see how our own thoughts and actions can keep that anger going or not. And also, Mukesh, we will not be taking this workshop in Hindi because not everyone here would be speaking in Hindi, right? So that's why we conduct these workshops in English. Yes, Ria, do you have a question? Please go ahead and unmute. Okay. All right. There's another question in the chat. What if we are short tempered, we feel upset all the time, and we just don't know what is going on? So, hopefully, as we go through this workshop, you might understand a little bit more about your own anger and why this happens. Because even if you give me 100 people who are short tempered, every single one of them would have a very different lived experience, right? They've had different childhood, they've had different people in their lives that influence them, they've had different things happening to them in the present moment that are making them angry. So all of that is very unique to you. So but I do think that the activity we'll be doing might help you learn a little more about your anger. So I have another question for you all. When do people get angry? So what are the things that could lead to anger in people? And again, you can put this in the chat box, or if you'd like to unmute, then please raise your hand and you can go ahead. Right, if things don't go their way, disrespect, dissatisfied, conflicts, some triggers. So right, we're trying to figure out what those triggers are for people. So if anything that, in general would make people angry when they feel unheard, that is very true. Right, when things are not going according to our point of view, or being forced to do something, being disrespected. I see a lot of people saying things along the lines of being disrespected or having obstacles in the way, not being understood. Lack of motivation, that's an interesting answer, Kamini. But I understand how that might lead to anger towards the self. Betrayal, conflict, helplessness, ego is hurt, burnout. Okay, that's also interesting. Yes. Low self-esteem. Okay. Absolutely. Blaming, yes. Of course, blaming someone or even blaming yourself could lead to feeling anger. That is very true. When expectation is not met, okay. I see a lot of people saying hurt or disagreement. So yes, anger does come up when we have some sort of conflict with other people or when they have done something wrong to us. Partiality, yes. That is another great answer. That less power when our needs are unmet or unfulfilled. Alright, I think you guys have really covered a lot of it, and yes, these are all very common reasons that people get angry. So I'll just quickly go over the common reasons that people get angry. The first one is injustice. Now, injustice is when society or the social system itself, if you think of things like oppression or poverty or being treated badly because of things that were out of your control, like your race, your religion, your caste, your color, anything like that. So injustice is a more broader social reason for anger, that you might feel like your community is being treated wrongly, or that somebody did something disrespectful to you because of who you are. So that is one common reason that people would feel angry. The other is, as you all, I think, said it, poor treatment from other people. So if somebody hurts you, somebody betrays you somehow, or does something disrespectful. So those are all really common reasons for feeling anger. And lastly, you have goals getting blocked. So that is, if you're trying to do something and then some obstacle gets in the way, then that can lead to anger as well. Now, a lot of you also mentioned internal reasons for anger, and I think that was a great point, right? No, I mean, when I say I didn't say that we get angry because of color. I say that if somebody mistreats you for being the color that you are, then that could be a social reason for anger. Like, think of racism. That is what I mean by injustice and how that can lead to anger. So, right, as I was saying, a lot of you mentioned internal reasons as well, and I think that is also a part of it for sure. But over here, we were trying to look at the external things, or the things outside of us that might happen and trigger that anger. But thank you so much for bringing all of those up. Those are also really valid points, that of course there could be things going on inside that lead to anger, like unresolved trauma or low self-esteem, self-blame, or a lot of those things that you guys mentioned. Those were really great points. So thank you so much for interacting over here. So before we get into understanding our own anger, I'd like to go over the consequences of unhealthy anger, because even though today's workshop is about using anger in a healthy way, in order to do that, we also need to be aware of the consequences that unhealthy anger can have, or what can happen to us if that anger goes out of our control, or if it becomes too intense, right? So some of these are really obvious, so I will not be going too in depth into it. So the first consequence of unhealthy anger is aggression, that somebody out of anger might choose to be aggressive or choose to be hostile, and that can lead to very negative consequences in their life. Next is substance use. So people who feel intense anger often might try to deal with it by using substances, so by smoking or drinking or whatever, and that can lead to long-term effects on their physical health. Next is damaged relationships, as I think people have mentioned relationship problems in the chat as well. And yes, anger can lead to damaged relationships, and one of the most obvious ways is that you might end up lashing out at someone. You might say something that you normally wouldn't, and that can directly hurt someone, but it can also indirectly alienate people from you. So imagine a situation like, if a parent tends to get really angry, but they don't get angry at their child, they just get angry at other people. So maybe they get angry at the child's parents, at the child's teachers, or they get angry at a shopkeeper or somebody that they work with or something. Now, the child himself is not getting that anger directed at them, but the child is seeing that parent getting angry or getting hostile. So that can be a really scary thing, and then they might feel scared around their own parent, and they might feel like, okay, what if I end up upsetting my parent? What if they haven't been angry with me before, but what if they get angry with me? So indirectly as well, even if you've never lashed out at a particular person, even if they have just seen you being angry at someone, that could lead to damaging that relationship as well. Next, we have negative emotions, because after feeling angry, we might regret it. We might feel sad about the other consequences, or feel scared that what if I end up doing something more in my anger. Or so sadness can, or anger can come with other negative emotions as well. We might feel bad about feeling bad. Okay, so this workshop is about our own anger. Like you are the one who are here in the workshop. I can't really tell you how to deal with other people as well. But hey, this workshop will be recorded and will be on YouTube. So if you feel like this could help somebody else in your life, then feel free to share that with them. Okay. Next we have accidental self-injury. Now this is something that you might not have heard of, but accidental self-injury related to anger is basically when you're angry, you're being more impulsive and your awareness is lesser. So you might act on something on your anger without actually considering the consequences, and this can lead to things like hitting the wall or throwing objects or tensing up your hands and muscles so much that it hurts you. Now of course none of that is intentional. The person didn't mean to injure themselves, so that is why it's called accidental self-injury. But it's important to notice that physical consequence that anger can have when it ends up taking control of us, right? So even just that physical muscle tension that anger gives you can lead to headaches or strained muscles, or even grinding your teeth so much that it damages your teeth in the long run. So all of these are common consequences of anger, and trying to become more aware of it. And later on we will be talking about some ways to calm down as well. So using those techniques to reduce that anger could help you keep yourself safe. Okay, we have a question in the chat. How is aggression and anger different? As what is known, aggression is a form of expressing anger mostly. So I think that is a great question, and in a way you've started to answer it for yourself, that aggression is one expression of anger, right? It's and anger is not the only reason that somebody might be aggressive. As I said before, that if someone wants power over somebody else, they might not even be angry, but they might use aggression to get that power or to get that control. So aggression is a behavior. It is an action that you decide to take. And sure, sometimes being angry might make you feel like being aggressive, but anger itself is just an emotion. It's a normal human emotion, and it doesn't have to come with aggression. Right. Okay, I'm glad I could answer your question. And that's a great point, Ade, that if someone is angry, you want to calm them down, just right, somebody could try that out if they feel safe doing so. And the last consequence of anger that we're going to discuss is health concerns. So anger, in the long run, if you're angry often, that high stress can cause health concerns for you. So I think we all know that anger is linked to things like heart disease. So that is one of the reasons that learning more about your anger and managing it in a healthier way is very important for us. Okay, Adhindra, that is a great question. So yes, being consumed by anger is unhealthy. Creating anger can be healthy or unhealthy. It really depends on how you use it, or how intentional and aware you are while you're doing it. Because if you just get angry and it again makes you impulsive, then it could end up hurting you, right? So right, I think as we move on, you might get more clarity on this as well. So we're going to try to understand why we get angry, because this is something that would help us understand anger better, right? Because when we're actually angry, it feels like it happens in a snap, like it just flares up like a fire, and then you're just really angry and tense and everything. But there are different things that contribute to that anger, and if we become aware of it, if we notice it more in our life, then we can bring about some healthier changes for us. So the first thing over here is something called the precipitant. Now this is just the trigger, this is what made you angry in that situation. So for example, if somebody said something hurtful, then that is the precipitant, that is the trigger in that case. And there's also a pre-anger state that affects us. That imagine if you're already under some sort of stress, or you're already feeling hungry or something like that, then if something upsetting happens, then that also contributes to how angry you would feel. And I know I will be giving an example to explain this more later, so hopefully that will give us more clarity. The next one is appraisal, and appraisal is just our thoughts about it. So our thoughts about the current situation, and our thoughts about how well we think we'll be able to deal with it. And all of those things contribute to the anger that you feel, and then to the expression that you choose, the behavior that you choose to do. So far what we might have thought is that, okay, something happened and that's why I got angry. But that's not how it is. There are these other things contributing to it as well. So getting a little bit more into this model, I'll explain it a bit more and give an example, and then if you have any questions you can ask later. So appraisal is the thought level of anger, right? So when we're thinking about it, when you're thinking in the situation, we think of two things. First is, did somebody do something wrong? We're trying to figure out, okay, so what went wrong in that situation? Is there somebody to blame? Did somebody do something wrong? Was it just a mistake? And all of these different judgments can contribute to anger in different ways, which is again something that we'll be exploring more later in this workshop. The next is, do I have what I need to manage in this situation? So depending on whether you feel like you have what it takes to manage the situation, or you don't, that also contributes to anger, right? Like if you feel like, okay, it's fine, I have what I need to get out of the situation, then you're less likely to be angry, rather than if you think that it's out of your control, or it's hurt you beyond repair and that you can't do anything about it, then that might lead to more anger, right? So that is what happens on the thought level. So now here is an example that can help us understand this model better. So Anjali over here has a job interview today, but as she was rushing out of the house, she could not find her car keys anywhere. So she feels frustrated that she didn't keep the keys in the right place right before such an important day. And in a rush, she pushes things off of the table looking for the keys. And because she feels like she's running out of time, she books a cab instead and goes. Now, in this situation, I would like you guys to try and tell me what went wrong over here. What is the precipitant, or what is the thing that upset Anjali? You can try to put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and speak as well. Yes, Kamaya, please go ahead.
Maybe how I think about this is she's self-blaming herself. The situation is not in her control because she couldn't keep the keys in the right place in the first place.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so what was the first thing over here that triggered the anger? Right. Some of you in the chat have got it. Losing the car keys is the precipitant. That was the thing that first triggered her anger. That is the first situation that sparked the anger, right? Okay, so I'll just open up the model here as well so you can see the precipitant is the keys went missing. So that started this whole situation. Now, what can you tell me about her pre-anger state? How was she feeling before she lost her keys? Anxious, yes, that could be. I see somebody's mentioned pre-anger state is getting late, yes. Yes, getting late and nervous for the interview. Yes, so seeing nervous and worry. Right. It was a big day for her, absolutely. Okay. So yes, her pre-anger state over here was that she was stressed about the interview. So as a lot of you guessed, she might have been nervous, she might have been worried already or anxious, and that was an important day for her. So because of that, that also might have fed into her anger, right? Next, I'd like to ask you about the appraisal. So what are the kind of thoughts she had about the situation after she realized that her keys are gone? What did she think about the situation? What did she think about herself? Yes, what if she gets late and didn't get on time to the interview? That is the truth. She might have thought that. Might be late, regret and helpless, yes. And does she think that she has what it takes to cope with this situation? Right. Might be imagining the worst case scenario about getting late and losing her chance. Yes, might feel helpless about what do I do now without the keys. Restless, okay, yes. These are all great answers. I think you guys are really empathizing with Anjali here and being able to understand what she might be thinking and feeling in this situation. So over here, the appraisal is that she's blaming herself, right? That she thinks that she should have kept the keys in the right place. How could she not do that? So that is one of the thoughts she had. And she also felt like she doesn't have the time, that she's getting late, so she needs to do something. And the angry feelings, I think you guys have pointed that out as well, that she was feeling frustrated. And okay, so what did Anjali, how did she express her anger, right? How did she choose to express her anger in this situation? Right. She threw things off the table. That was her anger expression. Okay, great. So you guys have understood that in this situation, the precipitant or the trigger was that the keys went missing. And before that, she was already stressed about the interview. Then after the keys went missing, she started to blame herself and she felt like she didn't have enough time. So all of that, this first half led to her feeling frustrated and pushing things off of the table. So from this we can understand that it's not just the thing that happened, it's not just the keys going missing that lead to anger, there's all of these other factors as well. So if it was another normal day, if she didn't have an interview to get to, she might have been more relaxed. She might have taken her time to look for her keys. If she hadn't blamed herself, maybe she wouldn't feel so frustrated, but just angry at the keys being missing. So that frustration would not have been directed towards herself. The lack of time is also something that was out of her control, but thankfully she had the finances to get a cab, so she didn't feel it didn't escalate to her feeling too hopeless or helpless, because in the end she was like, I don't have time, I'm just going to book a cab and go. So okay, there is a question in the chat. Will this workshop cover when a person can't show anger to the other person or takes it internally, which might lead in passive aggressiveness, and how to release anger? Yes, so we will be talking about some healthier ways of expressing anger or dealing with it later. So hopefully that will help you out. And yes, you bring up a great point that anger, when repressed, can end up hurting you internally as well. And yes, now is a great time to ask about the model itself if anyone has any questions. So I'll start by addressing the one in the chat. So is pre-anger state always exists for the person, as because sometimes we are happy, then suddenly when trigger arises, then we burst with anger. Right, that is a great question. I think there is always a pre-anger state. In this, it's you were happy before the pre-anger state. We just want to notice what was happening with you before, and sometimes it might contribute to the anger, like being stressed would contribute, right? And even if you think about it, if you were happy and then something bad happens, then that could lead to feelings of being disappointed or feeling hurt, that I was having such a nice day and now something bad happened. So just understanding your relationship with these different emotional states and how it ties into your anger could help you get a better understanding of why this happens to you, right? Why someone get angry without a reason? No, I wouldn't know unless that someone is here and talking to me. So it can be for a number of reasons, really. But yeah, I hope that this workshop will help you understand your own anger. Okay, Jinx, do you have a question? You can go ahead and unmute.
Okay, hey there, it's me. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
My question is that it's not just anger, A few days back, I was going through certain things. Okay. And I realize it's not just anger, like there are a lot of things that is happening. And you know what? I have always tried to identify where I make mistakes and I try to correct it. But you know what? There is no improvement which I can see. Whenever I am having the anger, I know it's an emotion, but I always want the other person to submit to that situation because I try to justify myself all the time. Okay. And you know what? I feel that, since my childhood till now, I have seen that I was never heard and always neglected. So I always have this tendency to explain myself, and it is so hard to control myself that I can't explain you. Like it's really difficult to control at that point of time when I am blamed for something which I have not done, and other things are going on the sideways, like I am having social anxiety and all, and I realize that I'm running for validation. Sometimes I'm trying to be the perfect kid every time, so like it's like too much and I cannot handle it. That too happens.
Right, absolutely. I can understand how stressful that situation might be, where you feel like you're being blamed and you have this whole childhood history of feeling unheard, right? So of course that would also contribute to it. So right, I can understand how intense those situations must be for you. And I know we can't go too in depth into individual reasons here today, but I hope that the upcoming slides will help you understand a little bit more about how your own thoughts might be contributing to it, or how to communicate or deal with anger in a healthier way, right? But of course, if you I feel like we can go more in depth into what's going on with you in a one-on-one situation of session, so please feel free to reach out to any of us at MindTribe.
Yeah, sure.
And thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so I'm seeing more things in the chat box. I'll just read through that. Yes, meditation can help calm out anger, but again, it depends on from person to person, right? Meditation is not always effective. And I think especially if you're stuck in this second part of maybe blame or feeling like you can't cope, and there's a lot of thoughts contributing to the anger, then sitting and thinking more about it might not help calm the person down. So it really depends on the individual situation and what is contributing to their anger, and trying to figure out what works for them, right? Different types of meditation that are more guided, or maybe focusing on the external things like your breath, or looking at a flame, or looking at a spot on the wall, and or noticing the sounds around you. So that kind of a meditation could help calm somebody down. But if it is the type of meditation where you close your eyes and you go look inside and introspect, then there is a chance that that might increase your anger. So it really depends on person, and yeah, I hope that you find something that works for you. It's not just anger, but unfulfilled expectations and a lot going on. Yes, of course. As we discussed, yeah, there can be a lot of different things. The expectations you put on yourself, expectations from other people, all of those things can also contribute to the anger. Yeah. Neha's brought up a great point that JPMR therapy, that is a type of therapy that trained professionals can do, which is muscle relaxation, so progressive muscle relaxation, and that physically helps the person relax. And yes, other relaxation and breathing exercises can help. Okay, I think Adindra, your question would be better addressed as we move on with the slides. So far, is this model clear to you? If everybody is okay with this model and they understand it, can I please get a thumbs up? All right, thank you so much, everyone. So we'll move on, and next we're going to have a little activity that will help us understand our own anger. So thank you, Ade. And now that we've understood the model, we're going to try recalling a recent incident where we were angry. And we're going to use this first half of the model, which is the precipitant, the pre-anger state, and the appraisal, to understand that specific situation better, to see what all contributed to that anger. So I will have some questions to guide you through this activity. And the first one over here is, what sparked your anger? So take a moment, think of a recent incident where you were angry, and you can note this down for yourself, or you can put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and unmute and tell me what happened in that situation that made you angry, and also what kind of a provocation was it? Was it injustice, or did somebody treat you badly, or did your goals get blocked? So if we were to think of the Anjali example again, it was that she lost her keys, and that led to her goals being blocked, right? Like, she couldn't go to the interview if she doesn't have her car keys. So that was the type of provocation and precipitant in that situation. Right, betrayal from a friend on a very small thing. Yes, a friend is somebody you trust, right? So of course that it is normal to feel angry and upset that a friend betrayed you. Yeah. A good shirt got torn because of carelessness. Yes, that it does sound upsetting. Being scolded, right? That. Right. Poor treatment, victim blaming, showing empathy and then telling me to believe I was wrong. That sounds like a complex situation where there's a lot of things going on, and thank you so much for taking the time to notice those things and share that with us. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of answers related to how somebody else hurt you, so family or friends or just being demeaned, right? Okay. Right, Atindra says, when the trigger level is beyond my level of awareness and something contradicts my core self. Okay, that does sound like it would be hard to understand, and if that's something you'd like to explore, I would recommend taking a one-on-one session, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you'd like some help. People not understanding your words, work stress, not listening, again, injustice, gaslighting. Yes, that can be really upsetting. Alright, so as we move ahead, we will be talking about how to deal with the anger. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing and taking this time to recall a recent incident. I know it might be difficult if at any point you feel like it's getting a little too much to be thinking about a recent incident. If you're feeling too stressed out, then feel free to take a break from this workshop. You can take a few deep breaths and come back to it, right? Okay, I think you guys have done a great job of recognizing what sparked your anger in that situation, and also what kind of a provocation it was. So a lot of things that you've mentioned are poor treatment from other people, right, or injustice. Yes, thank you so much. Now we'll move on to the next question, which is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense was that anger for you? So over here, 1 is not angry at all and 10 is intense rage. So in the middle, I think 2 or 3 would be you're just irritated or annoyed. 5 might be you're feeling frustrated. 6 or 7 is upset. So, alright, I'm seeing a lot of 10s and 9s in the chat. 8, 4, 10, 2, lots of 10s and 8s and 9s. Okay, Linita, if it was more of hurt, then I'd like you to think of just the anger itself. Like, you can rate anger and hurt separately. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong was the anger and how strong was the hurt, right? 100 on 10. Okay, that sounds really extremely intense. Okay, that sounds like intense anger, Jinx, that if you were screaming, breaking stuff, and even getting hurt. Okay, right. I'm seeing a lot of high numbers. Alright, thank you so much for sharing, everyone. So, right. I think, Yusra, that question is something that I will be addressing later on, of why somebody might not even get angry anymore, right? And how to deal with that, right? Um, but yeah, thank you for sharing, and thank you for recognizing your emotion and what you were feeling in that situation, as well as how strong it was. And right, I think when anger is so intense that it's 8, 9, 10, then of course that would feel really strong and out of control, right? And a lot of you said numbers that were more than 10 as well. So I can't imagine how strong that would have been for you, how strong that anger was. And what we'd like to do is maybe get that anger to a. It's normal to be angry, of course, that when things are going wrong, then of course you would feel angry, and that's totally okay and it's totally valid. But we'd like to bring that anger down to a more manageable level for you as well, right? So that it doesn't end up hurting you or hurting somebody else. So hopefully with the upcoming slides you would understand a little bit more about how to handle that anger. I'm sorry, this workshop is not really about how to handle other people, because I think that really depends on case to case basis on what's going on in your life and who those people are. So I really can't just give advice on that because it might not work, right? And if that is something you would like to talk about, I would definitely recommend taking a one-on-one session, or just reach out to one of us individually. Okay, so the next question over here is, how were you feeling before the event? So this is about the pre-anger state. So could anyone tell me how they were feeling before the incident itself, if they remember? You can put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. All right. I have two people saying calm. Okay, come on, feeling chaotic, happy, disturbed, or sad. All right. Okay, Adindra, that's a great point, that you analyze the situation and how you're feeling and make choices based on that. That's interesting. That's great. Okay. Feeling confused, calm, unheard, and gaslit. That, I'm sorry you went through that. Tired, chilling. Okay. Right. And if you think that the pre-anger state might have contributed to the anger, then please give me a little thumbs up here. I'm not sure I understand your question, Jinx, so you could unmute and explain if you'd like.
Like, is it an event because of I reacted in such a way? And your question is like, how was I feeling before I reacted, or like because of my anger before that I was angry or something like that?
So the question over here is, before whatever happened, whatever made you angry, before that happened, how were you feeling? And it could be anything. It doesn't have, right?
Okay. Mhm.
Because you might have noticed in the chat, a lot of people were feeling calm or chilling or just tired, right? Now, yes, go on.
Exactly. Before anything happens, I just have no notice and I am always calm and composed.
Mm-hmm.
But when something happens, I'm like, I'm a different person then. It is like
Mm-hmm.
uncontrollable.
Right,
That is again
absolutely.
the urge, like, right? Like, I can sense that there are a lot of people and I always compare myself. Like sometimes comparing works, but not always. I know that, but I always compare. Like the other people are calm and composed, and they handle their things really properly. But you know what? Everything I feel is so much not my way. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
I feel is going in a very negative direction or not in the direction I want.
Mm-hmm.
So it is like sometimes triggering. Like if say you have a really bad social circle and
Right.
you have got social anxiety and then you are in a family where you are not happy or you're stressed and then again there is your career,
Mm-hmm.
again parents. So I
Right.
don't know.
Right. I think I understand that. Yeah, you might have been calm and okay before the thing, but then when all of these things happen, then of course it would be normal to feel anger or to feel an intense emotion at that point, right? And yeah, sometimes
Hmm.
that pre-anger state can contribute, but sometimes it's just that it doesn't even connect, right? Like if you were just feeling okay, then that's all right, right? With this, we're just trying to build that awareness, and
Hmm.
for some people, I think it might be a factor that contributes to the anger, or maybe some situations might happen in your life that, for example, if you're driving is already a stressful activity because it's dangerous, right? Like if something, even one thing goes wrong, somebody could get hurt. And if in that situation somebody does something, like if somebody cuts you off or something like that, then you're more likely to get angry, right? So it is a situation to situation thing that, but just knowing this, understanding this about your anger can help you in the future. So if any other situation pops up, you might realize that, okay, maybe I was too tired to deal with this, so when this happened I got more angry. Or if I wasn't stressed, maybe I wouldn't have gotten this angry. So just understanding yourself better might help you with that, any future situations, right?
Yeah, actually, ma'am, I realized that this thing happened, a few days back. One thing happened a few days back, and my brother explained me that you were handling the situation and you were trying to, suppress those emotions of anger,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just took it all at once. So you just kind of, uh, you yelled at someone or you did something because it built over a period of time. So that
Right.
is one thing. And another thing is that I'm always under regret that hampers my work as well. Like I cannot function properly
Mm-hmm.
when I'm feeling something. Like this morning also, I have a lot to do, but still I am sitting idle and trying to piece the time and just waste the time. That's what I'm doing.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that does sound like you have a lot of self awareness, but at the same time, you are currently working on yourself, and I think that's great. And it's not like you're doing nothing today. You came for the workshop, and thank you for that. But let's move on, since we are kind of going over time right now and there are a lot of slides. So I'll just address the questions in chat quickly before we go on to the next slide. So, yes, Lanita, maybe if you have any previously suppressed emotions and issues that can intensify anger, which is why it's important to become aware of these things, right? To notice your own feelings and to recognize that and let yourself feel those. And I'm hoping that this activity is one of those things that helps you realize what all might be going on and give you that space to feel it. Right, putting anger on a pedestal. That's an interesting point. That yes, anger can be a powerful emotion, right? So some people might prefer feeling angry instead of feeling sad or hurt or weak, right? They might think of anger as the more better thing to do. So yes, that could be something that contributes to anger. Right, absolutely. I think if you do end up doing something impulsive in angry situation, then that can lead to regret or guilt later. Yes, but I think as we go on, we will see some ways to handle that. So I hope that helps you out. Okay, so the next question is about your thoughts, right? So what did you think about the situation or the precipitant, right? So whatever triggered your anger, did you think that it was on purpose, or did you think that it was something that could have been prevented? If did it seem unjustified, or did it seem something worth blaming the other person for, worth blaming yourself for? So what kind of thoughts did you have about that situation? And I think in Anjali's case, she was thinking that if she had just kept her keys in the right place the night before, it would have been fine. So she was blaming herself, and she was also thinking that it was something that could have been prevented. But at the same time, she didn't think it was on purpose. She thought it's a mistake she made, right? So things like that. If you can think of that incident, and what were your thoughts about the trigger? Okay, Jinx says it was on purpose, and yeah, I think if it was done on purpose, then I think that would be more upsetting rather than if somebody just made a mistake, right? So I think that's why we're trying to understand what kind of thoughts we were having. And would anybody else like to share? If not, then I'll move on to the next question. Okay, I have people saying unjustified, blameworthy, right? Okay. All right, thank you so much for sharing, everyone. Since we are running a bit out of time, we're over time, I will move through this a bit faster, but thank you so much for sharing and participating. So in that situation, what did you think about your own ability to deal with the event? You might think of the resources you had to deal with it, like time, money, support from other people. You might think of your own skills, right? So thinking back to that recent incident of anger, what did you think about your own, when it was happening, how did you feel? Like, did you feel like you couldn't deal with it, or did you feel like you had the tools required to deal with the situation? Would anyone like to share? So getting support from other people, that is absolutely a great resource to have. Just don't want that situation at all. So okay, you felt like avoiding the whole thing. I can understand that. Following healthy defense mechanisms. So I suppose you felt like you knew how to handle that, or you felt like you have these techniques already to deal with it. I think that's great. Okay, I think, is this situation worth the energy, making them understand? All right, yes. I think in that case you were thinking about the energy or the effort it would take and whether you wanted to, or whether it was worth spending that, right? Listening to music is also great. So if you know something that does help you calm down, then that can also be a resource that helps you deal with the situation. That's great, Anushka, that you felt satisfied with how you dealt with it, right? Okay, all right. I think thank you so much for sharing. Those are all great answers. I can really relate to those. Yes, sometimes if the anger is too much, then taking a step back from the situation and talking about it later can be beneficial. Absolutely. So is sleeping. True. So now that we've somewhat understood the kind of thoughts that might be influencing the anger or even the feelings that influence it, we're going to take a look at the types of thoughts that can increase anger. Okay, so first of all, we have something called overgeneralizing. So when something bad happens or when something upsetting happens, then if you respond to it as if your whole day has been ruined or everything's going to go bad because one thing went bad, then that is called overgeneralizing. So you're looking at one isolated incident and responding to it as if it is a pattern. So examples of this are thinking that he always does this, or things never go well for me, or why do I always get every single red light when I'm driving. Now you can notice the pattern that somebody might think always, never, always, and generalize this one incident to their whole day or to their whole life or even to their whole relation with this one person, right? So this can lead to feeling more intense anger, right? Because then it feels like it's not just the one thing that's gone wrong, it feels like everything has gone wrong. I hope that makes sense. And the next one is catastrophizing. This is in a way similar to overgeneralizing in the sense that you think of that one event in and interpret it in a really negative way, and it can make it harder for the person to cope with it. We will be talking about demandingness too, are they? Glad you brought that up. So examples of catastrophizing are thinking that this ruins everything, or now my whole day will go bad. So it is similar to overgeneralizing in the sense that you're thinking that this one event is affecting everything, right? I'd say the difference here is that overgeneralizing is thinking that whatever happened, whatever one incident happened, is something that always happens to you, or that things never go well for you. Whereas catastrophizing is thinking that because that one thing happened, now your whole day is ruined, or your whole relationship with that one person is ruined just because they did this one thing, right? So that can also it can happen in intense anger state. It can lead to you feeling more angry. You can think about it this way, that whatever situation happened, it's of course that also contributes to the anger, that sparked the anger or lit the fire in the first place. But then these thoughts add fuel to the fire, so they're kind of making that anger more and more intense. So they also contribute to the anger. It's not really a cause and effect relationship. It's not that becoming angry leads to these thoughts or having these thoughts. It's more like the thoughts might be leading to more anger. It's more of a it goes in both directions. Like, yeah, being angry could lead to these thoughts, but these thoughts can also lead to anger. So they're both connected. So next we have demandingness, as Ari brought up, that it is a little bit different from expectations, because it's normal and human to have expectations, right? To expect things from yourself, from other people, or even from the world around you. But it becomes fuel for anger when people start putting their desires above the people around them. And the words that you can look out for here are should or must or have to. So thinking that she should have done this by now, or I have to get this right or else. So it puts a demand that things have to be the way you want them to be. And yes, it is similar to feeling entitled. So you might be putting those demands on yourself. You might be thinking that about the world around you. You might think that about the people involved in that situation. So demandingness can put that absolute must have or should on that situation, and it can make you more rigid instead of flexible and lead to more anger. I hope these three are clear for everyone. If yes, please give a thumbs up. Okay, great. We just have 2 more thoughts to cover, and then we'll be going on to an activity. So the next type of thought is misattributing causation. So this is basically when you're looking for who's responsible, and we might make a mistake in that process. So we're trying to interpret what caused the situation or assign blame. We might be wrong. We might assume something. Like, for example, if a mother comes home and she sees that there's water spilled on the floor, she might think that, oh, my child has made a mess, when in reality it could be the husband who did that, right? She doesn't really know for sure, but if she makes that assumption and attributes that blame, then, or even assuming why the person did that, can lead to more anger. So for example, thinking that the person did that on purpose to make me look bad, or it must have been X person who did that. Like, for example, in my example, the mother thinking that it must be my child only who made this mess, and then getting angry at the child. That can, looking for blame, looking to assume why people did that, can contribute to that anger. And lastly, we have inflammatory labeling, and I know it sounds like a big word, but it's just name calling. So if in an angry situation you start to label people in a way that is very negative or cruel, then that can lead to more anger. And that is because you're kind of dehumanizing the person. You're thinking of them as something lesser or something worse, and right, you're just labeling them as a total idiot or completely worthless just based on that one incident or situation. So that can lead to you feeling more angry towards the person, rather than being able to talk to them calmly, or like express yourself in a more assertive way. You would end up feeling very angry at that person if you're labeling them negatively. So I hope these 5 are clear to you, because now we're going to do a little activity on identifying the kinds of thoughts that you had in that recent incident. So if you can think back to that incident that you were thinking of during that last activity, take a look at your thoughts, right? But before that, I'd also like to say that sometimes these thoughts might be true, right? Like, there might be situations where these thoughts are accurate to reality, that maybe there was somebody to blame, or maybe somebody did do this on purpose and try to hurt you, or maybe things should have worked out better, right? But regardless of whether it is accurate or not, research has shown that people who think these types of thoughts regularly experience anger more, and they also experience it more intensely. They were also more likely to express that anger in hostile ways, and they also experienced more consequences, negative consequences, like fighting or risky behavior that can lead to accidental self-harm, or even unpleasant emotions like sadness, regret, and guilt. So even if these thoughts might be true about your situation, and yes, absolutely, there are times when people are being mean for no reason, or have done something really hurtful or disrespectful. These kind of thoughts are not very helpful to you. So that is why we'd like to notice them, notice if that we have a pattern of thinking these types of thoughts, so that we can address that, right? So now that we know that, I'd just like you guys to think of these 5 types of thoughts, that is overgeneralizing, catastrophizing, demandingness, misattributing causation, and inflammatory labeling. And you can rate each one of these on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 being you didn't think any of these thoughts at all, 2 or 3 being okay, some of the thoughts were about these falling into this type, 4 or 5 being a lot of the thoughts were very strongly falling into these 5 types of thoughts. So you can give a score for each one, and if you think we're almost done, so we've just have a few slides left. I think I'll be able to wrap up by 1:30 probably. And thank you so much for staying over time, all of you. So I think let's quickly note this down for ourselves, right? So if you can think about that last situation, and you can either give an overall score, or you can try giving an individual score for each. So how much overgeneralizing was there on a scale of 1 to 5? How much catastrophizing was there on a scale of 1 to 5? And so on. It would be beneficial for you if you were able to identify specifically which ones were happening, so that can help you understand your own pattern, unique pattern of thoughts. And right, I think if we go back to the Anjali example, there was a bit of misattributing causation because she was blaming herself, and if she had called herself a loser or an idiot or something like that, then there was also inflammatory labeling. There was demandingness because she thought she should have done that, or she should have had the keys sorted out. So Anjali might give it a score of 4 or 5 on misattributing causation. Maybe she'd give 2 on inflammatory labeling, and right, maybe demandingness would be 4 or 5 for her. And you guys can note these down for yourself, so you can use this later on if you'd like to. If at any point you get angry again, you can take note of, okay, what kind of thoughts am I having, right? So you can take note of these types of thoughts. Okay. Right. Thank you so much for all the responses and participating in this activity. You can see that you've done a great job of identifying exactly which types of thoughts you were having and which you weren't, and that's great. I hope that helps give you some clarity on your own experience of anger. So moving on, I'd like to ask you all, what are some alternate thoughts you could have had about that situation? instead of catastrophizing, generalizing, or being demanding, what are some alternate thoughts that could have helped you in that situation? Again, feel free to put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and speak as well. Self-compassion, absolutely. I think it can be hard to be kind to yourself. I think we all tend to be too harsh. Yes, was somebody saying something? If anyone would like to say something, you can go ahead, raise your hand, unmute. Okay, if not, I'll get back to the chat. So, yes, self-compassion is a great answer, Nitin. Thank you so much for that. Are they saying instead of throwing things, you could handle it with calmness? What about yourself, Arya? I know you're speaking about Anjali right now. Ignore the situation, right? Maybe you could have stepped back from the situation, because sometimes we notice that, okay, maybe we're too angry to deal with it right now and need to take a step back, or maybe just take some deep breaths and then go to it. Right, that's a great answer, Kamini. Moving on from what has happened and focusing on what we can do to make the situation better. That is a very proactive thing to do and healthy as well. Solution focused, understanding my mother's intentions, right? Being aware, I'm guessing you meant nervous system regulation, self affirmations. Yes, absolutely. Learning how to handle the situation smartly with a little manipulation, that's interesting. Self-focused, healing self instead of focusing, which is ruining self. Okay, yes. Right. I think those are all some great answers, everybody. And you're already on a track to having a better relationship with your anger. Thank you so much for taking the time to share that with us and to note that down for yourself. So now I'd like to come to the benefits of anger. Now that we've understood our anger a little better and hopefully understand the things that contribute to it in a negative way, I'd like to focus on the positives of anger and why it can be healthy or good for us. So, like all emotions, anger exists for a reason, right? There is an evolutionary biological cause for anger that is still very relevant to us in present day. So, first of all, anger is there to tell you when something is dangerous. It's alerting you that something could hurt you or something could cause you some harm or get in your way. So it is an alert or a warning for you to take note that there is something going wrong that affects your life negatively. And in the case of something like your goals getting blocked, right, like it could be that your desires or your motivation is getting blocked, or it could be that someone is actively doing something that hurts you. So all of those things, anger is there to tell you that you're in danger. Next is energizing, because anger is an energizing emotion. It gives you the energy to deal with the present situation. So right, that's why it can feel very empowering as well. And this is also one of those evolutionary reasons that it's there to protect you from that harm. So it's your body trying to protect you from whatever's going on and give you the energy required to deal with it. So, and lastly, anger is also important for communication, because it communicates to other people with your expression and body language how you're feeling and how they should approach you, right? So we will also be talking a little bit about healthy communication later, but right, anger just tells other people that something wrong has happened to you and that they need to be careful about it. So I'd like to ask you all, what does anger feel like in your body? Thank you, Dupsha. So physically, when you get angry, you could think of a recent incident. So, right, fast heartbeat, headaches, absolutely, yeah. Huge rush of energy, migraines. Okay, I feel like headaches and migraines might come a little later, but in that moment when you first get angry, what does that feel like in your body? I'd say aggression is a behavior and not a physical sensation, Amrita. So, if you could think about the physical sensation, that how did that feel? We have a lot of answers coming in. Thank you so much for being so interactive and participating, everyone. So, that's a great question, Adinda. What will we be more physically strong being angry or in a calm state? So think of it this way, right? I think everyone's heard of the fight or flight response, right? Like, so when you're stressed, so even when you're angry, your body is giving you energy, adrenaline, to deal with that situation immediately in that moment. So in a calm state as well, of course, depending on it's not like you can't do anything physically, you can still deal with things, but anger can just give you that adrenaline or that rush in that moment to deal with it immediately. And yeah, body shaking, discomfort in throat, lots of heartbeat related things, head going to blast, shivering, crying. Okay. Blood rush and tightness in the muscle, yes, that can be due to anger. Right, volume high, that is another part of, I think, communication. So being a bit louder, being more clear with your voice might be due to that anger and trying to communicate that clearly to the other person. Yes. Let's say some of these, like shouting and aggression, are more behaviors, right? So we're just trying to notice how it feels in the body, because next we're going to discuss a little bit about how anger can be energizing, right? So anger can be a powerful emotion, as we all just discussed. It might, if it's too strong, you might feel too shaky or restless, but if you're just a little angry, then that can give you energy to deal with that situation. So if your anger was on a scale of 1 to 10, it's on a 5 or 6, and you know that is still within a normal range, and it helps you have that energy to deal with that situation. But if that anger is getting so intense that it's 10, 8, 9, 10 or above, then we might need to lower it or do something to calm down a little bit, right? So first is taking some deep breaths, because relaxing your body with either taking deep breaths or maybe with some exercise, going for a walk, going for a jog, or even just putting on some music and dancing, all of those can help you physically relax your body and release some of that tension if it's getting too much for you, and help you bring yourself back to a more manageable level of anger. Yes, absolutely, taking deep breaths really helps. So that is one thing that you can do when that anger is becoming too intense. The next is visualizing a calm place. So especially if you can't get away from the current situation, it's not something that you can get out of, then just taking some deep breaths and visualizing a more peaceful place. So it could be a place that you've been to, it could be even an imaginary place. So if you just imagine being in a space that you like, and a lot of people might think of nature like being in a forest, being at the beach and hearing the waves. So just visualizing a calm and peaceful place for yourself can help you lower that anger in that moment. And lastly is relaxing your body. As I mentioned, physical activity or meditation can help, or even progressive muscle relaxation. That is something that trained mental health professionals can help you with in a session. So all of those, learning how to relax your body can help you reduce some of that anger. And yes, if you would like, you can take a step back from that situation and come back to dealing with it once you're feeling better. So next is, what if you feel disconnected from the anger? Now this is something that we call desensitization, that if you're just if these things, upsetting things, happen to you a lot, right, then we might get disconnected from our anger, and we might not even get angry anymore when that happens. And that can be due to many reasons. And so what do we do when that happens to us, and when we'd like to get back in touch with our own anger? Because like I said, anger is just another normal, valid response, and it's okay to feel anger. It can, as I said, give you energy to deal with the situation. And if you're not feeling anger at all, then we can do certain things about it. So first is, whenever you do have a situation that makes you angry, you can take a note on it so that you can later recall that event and refuel that anger. So whenever there's that instance of anger with somebody, just take note of, okay, what happened, what made you angry, and later on that can motivate you, and that can give you back that anger to deal with that situation. And next is just simply finding something online that makes you angry. I think one great example of how we can get desensitized is if we keep seeing negative things in the news, or if we know that there's a lot of bad things happening in society, then slowly, if we're more exposed to that, then we can get desensitized, right? So in that situation, reconnecting with those things that make you angry can help motivate you to feel that anger again, and to bring about some change in your society, right? So these are just some things that can help you get back in touch with your anger, because anger is, again, a normal, valid human situation. It is telling you that there's some danger, that there is some harm being done, and that you want to do something about it. So if at any point you're feeling disconnected from anger, then these are some things that can help you with that. So we're almost towards the end of the workshop. I'd just like to ask you all a very important question. Do you think that venting out anger is healthy? Now, this venting out could be in a verbal form, like shouting, yelling, or just even talking bad about somebody. Or it could be in a physical form, where you punch pillows, or you vent that anger out on something. So what do you think? Do you think that is healthy or unhealthy for you? Okay, so getting some mixed answers here. Some are saying no, some are saying yes, some are saying yes but with conditions attached. Or not sure. Okay, I think that I'd like to clarify here that I'm not talking about exercise or dancing and all. That is just physically letting the tension out. I'm speaking more about the more aggressive ways of venting out. So that could be, like I said, in a physical form, it could be something like punching a pillow, or bursting some balloons or tearing up some sheets of paper or something. All right, so I think this was important to address. I'm still seeing mixed answers. Some people are saying yes and some are saying it's unhealthy. Okay, so I think those are all some great points, and I can understand where you're coming from. And yeah, sometimes it can be therapeutic. That is a good point, Anushka, that tearing and sometimes burning a paper with all your negative emotions on it can be therapeutic. But that is a very what can I say? That is something that you've thought through, that you've done this activity of writing down the negative emotions and becoming aware of them and then tearing it up. I'm talking more about just in your anger, to get out that anger, you just tear things up just like that. Okay, so the answer to this is that it's actually not healthy for you to vent out the anger or to let it out, and there are several reasons for it. First of all, it makes you more angry. Like, if you're dealing think of it as you're building this habit of whenever you're angry, you let it out in a hostile or aggressive way, and that doesn't actually make you less angry. The next time you're angry, you're more likely to let it out in a similar way, so it increases that chance of hostile behavior, and it isn't really calming, even as a placebo effect. So this has all been researched. There have been experiments done with this. So experiments like one group of people would vent it out and would do something to physically let out that anger or to shout and yell, and one group would do something else. So the group that was letting it out or venting were more likely to still be angry after that, and they would express that anger in an unhealthy way when put in an upsetting situation. So that really goes to show that this catharsis or the letting out anger or venting it out can be unhealthy for you. So what is a healthy way of managing anger? So if you guys have any ideas of what are some alternate behaviors you can do when we get angry in the future, you can quickly put those in the chat. So rather than venting out or doing something aggressive, what are the other things that you might want to do when you're angry? Drink water, yes. I think people have mentioned earlier that they would like to take a step back from the situation, just avoid it until they're feeling better or calmer. People have talked about taking deep breaths. That's also great. Going for a walk, yes. Writing, yes. Written therapy, that can be therapeutic, yes. Redirecting, like going for a walk and gardening, absolutely. Analyzing the emotions, yes, that can help you bring that awareness into what's going on with you. Right, I think Adhindra, that's a great point. Staying silent and clarify the situation, because right, sometimes we might not have all the information, so trying to understand it better can be a great step. Rationalizing, introspection. Okay. All right, I think these are all great responses. You talking to someone about it, absolutely. Dancing, staying in a silent place, yes, finding a peaceful space that helps you calm down is a great step to take. Looking at it from a third person perspective, that's interesting, and yes, that can be really helpful. Okay, I think these are all really great answers. You guys are doing a great job. And I hope that this helps the others too. If you see anything that you resonate with, anything that you'd like to try next time, then you can take a note of it for yourself. And now I'd just like to discuss some pro-social or healthy solutions for anger. So firstly, we have problem solving. So this is a more, I think some people have mentioned being rational, logical, or trying to get more information. So all of those things come into this type of behavior, that is problem solving. So identifying the problem and trying to find a solution, right? So you're noticing what the anger is alerting you to. You're accepting that, okay, I'm feeling angry right now, and that, okay, this thing is making me angry. Now what can I do about it, right? So that is problem solving. The next is assertiveness, right? So when we are angry and the situation does involve other people, we can try to have meaningful conversation with them and express how you felt when you were wronged. Now I know in anger, if you're angry at someone, if you feel like the anger is too intense and that you might lash out, then please take a moment to calm down and to take a breath. This is something that assertiveness is something that we can plan it in advance, that okay, I felt upset about XYZ thing, now this is how I'm going to talk to them about it. So expressing how you felt over here would be saying things like, I felt annoyed, or I felt angry when you did XYZ thing, or I was hurt when you said this thing to me. So it's not about blaming the other person, it's not about making them feel bad about it. It's about expressing how you felt in an attempt to gain that understanding between the two of you, to build that trust between the two of you, that okay, so you would like to have an example of assertiveness. All right, so okay, let me think of a situation where you might get angry. Okay, so how about this, a situation where you've made plans with a friend and you plan to meet for lunch, and you both travel there together. I mean, you travel there, but then they can't cancel last minute, right? So that might make you angry, because you put in the effort to go there, that you'd made these plans beforehand, and then they didn't show up. So in that situation, you could talk to them and tell them that, hey, I felt quite angry and frustrated that we'd made these plans and then you didn't show up for lunch with me. Or that, you can express that to them, right? Because it's valid to feel that anger in that situation, it's valid to feel hurt in that situation. You can, of course, you can also say that I understand that you had your reasons, I understand that something unavoidable came up or whatever, but you can say that to them, so that you're showing that empathy to that other person as well. Because assertiveness is not about putting your desires or needs above somebody else, right? It's trying to find that equal ground. So you can express your emotions, but you can also express your understanding for the other person. You can express what you'd like to do in the future. So you can say that, in the future, if something does come up, could you please let me know beforehand, so I don't show up to the restaurant and you let me know that you couldn't come. So asking them to communicate better in the future. So all of that can be assertive communication. Desire, disappointment, anger, any correlation? Well, yes, I mean, we have talked about things like demandingness before, we've talked about pre-anger states, so depends on a situation to situation, person to person basis, but they can have a correlation. Right. Next is seeking support. So seeking support from someone and talking to them about how they felt, finding someone who sees you and hears you, right, can be really helpful. And I'd also like to clarify that in this situation, you're not going and gossiping about what happened. You're not trying to blame someone. You're not trash talking somebody else. You're just trying to express how you felt, what happened to you, and what kind of thoughts you had. And just having someone who actively listens to you can really help you feel supported. And it's also the case that if you think about things on your own, then you you don't get that alternate perspective. Like somebody else might help you get a different person perspective on the situation. So you can try to seek support from somebody that you trust, and therapy is also a great space for that. Next, we have creativity. Just like any other emotion, anger can be channeled into creating something. So if any of you like to dance, if any of you enjoy painting, sculpting, singing, cooking, anything creative, maybe you like to stitch or knit or anything like that, then you can use your anger as a motivation to create something as well. And a lot of great artwork has come out of anger as well. So that is another healthy way for you to channel your anger. You could also writing, journaling, those things are also creative ways of expressing your anger. And all of these things help you express it instead of suppressing or avoiding the anger itself, right? And that makes it healthy for you. And lastly, we have seeking broader change. So sometimes the things we're angry at are just broader societal things, right? You might notice that there's something wrong at your workplace, that maybe there's something wrong in your class, in your college, with the people around you. So you can use that anger to motivate you to do something about it, to go make some positive change. Like if you're angry about, say, environmental things, then you might decide to plant some trees, or just start a trash cleaning up rally kind of thing around your neighborhood. You can think of these broader changes as well. So this is the last question I have for you all. If you look back at a time when you were truly angry, can you tell me what did you do with the anger back then? And can you identify one positive thing that you could have done with the anger instead? And again, feel free to put this in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and unmute as well. Okay, letting it be. Yes. You can also note this down for yourself if you don't want to share, if you're not comfortable sharing what you'd done back then it's all right. You can just notice these things for yourself as well. Yes, go ahead, Amrita.
Hey, hi everyone. So today I face a situation where my mother has a narcissistic personality problem. So every time, it's talking to her gets impossible. So, for example, if I tell her to, pass on some, some work or something, some information to my dad, she'll manipulate it into, different way wherein it feels like I am, trying to, do some harm to my dad and my mother. This is what she does every time. So right now, what I have been doing, trying to do since few weeks is I will talk each and every word in front of my dad only. Even if it's just I want to talk to my mother or I want to talk to my dad. I wait for the time that they both are in the same room where my dad and my mother both are giving me attention when I'm talking to them. Because it's getting just impossible, and that I have faced a lot of abuse, disowning, and everything since childhood, and that has caused a very bad relationship with my dad. Obviously, with mother, it's also bad, but with my dad, uh, I have faced a lot of issues. So right now, from few months, I've been talking to him because he shifted back to my hometown, and I've been talking to him about how she has problems and everything. So he agreed to it that yeah, she has problems. So my relationship with my dad has improved, but somewhere he hasn't understood that he's been gaslighted, not just for me, for any other person, XYZ person, for any other relatives or any other person. Wherein she tries to show that I have done nothing. I am the innocent one and have done nothing. People are causing me pain. People are troubling me. I am the innocent one. So that that gives me a lot of anger because what I have faced, I just cannot tell everything on this small thing because that is I have faced a lot of physical, emotional, verbal abuse, isolation, disowning, no support, and everything, even financial abuse. So, yeah, that causes me anger. So, right now, I'm just trying to make notes every time. So, for example, if she has this particular kind of behavior which is causing me angry, so I have to handle it this way. And I try to not talk to her, just talk to her the very few words, very minimal sentences. That too, only if mom and dad are in the same room and they have full attention, like while dinner or at the night time before sleeping. That's it. That's what I'm doing right now.
Right. Yeah, that is a very tough situation to be in, and I think you've done a great job of, you know, finding things that you've like creating a safer space to talk when your dad is there, or communicating with her in a particular way. Right. And I do think we have done workshops on narcissistic parents before, so the recording might
Yes.
be there on YouTube
I think
channel.
there are sessions going on every Tuesday, dysfunctional and narcissistic family. So I am taking those workshops and taking notes from that as well.
Right, that's great. Yes, that's a group therapy that's going on. I'm glad that that has been helpful, and I do think that you're moving in the right direction of dealing with that in a way that's healthier for you. And
Yes.
thank you so much for sharing that, Amrita. Okay, I think if you look at the chat, we have some answers there. So, okay, I think based on this, I'd like to say that assertiveness or expressing your emotion is not about taking it out on someone else, right? Like, it's all right to tell someone how you felt because those feelings are very valid and normal and human. So it's all right to let them know that something has hurt you or made you feel angry, right? And that that is not the same as taking it out on someone. So I hope that yes, Richa, go ahead.
I have a question that when I get in fight or when I get angry on someone, especially the people who are close to me, I kind of feel disconnected with them, and and I just cannot talk freely to them as I was doing earlier. It happens like quite often because um, I'm mostly angry because I assume things in my head because of my trauma things and everything, and somehow I create. I'm like I fight because of I think that my needs are not met and I'm not heard and I'm not being seen and you are avoiding and this and that, which I'm working on presently. But I feel disconnected, and it is very difficult for me. I mean, I'm glad, I'm grateful for the people who are still there in my life because they know my condition, so they don't leave me. But I feel disconnected, and they have. It's very hard even for them and for me to get me back in that connection. I hope it's making sense. I mean,
Yes.
uh,
I,
can you please help me? And this workshop has really helped me in giving. I've taken notes of many things, but it gets so difficult when malab, people I love, people who love me and who support me during my hardest time. I feel disconnected with them. I doubt them that you guys though are going to leave me, and they're my closest friends, obviously because I'm dealing a lot with my family. So my friends are the only support I have who are there, and I always doubt them. And I disconnect with them totally, and it is so difficult for me to even talk normally with them. And they tell me ki, why are you being formal again? What happened? What did we do? So this is very difficult, and I really don't. I'm unable to find. Uh, what should I do? Matlab, it feels so, matlab, I get so overwhelmed and crazy actually, to be honest, that I really don't, I cannot find a way how to be normal with, how to actually tell them what is going on. I hope it makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So you've had these experiences that these traumas that have made it hard for you to trust people, even if they're your closest friends, right? And when you get angry, then you don't know how to express yourself or you feel disconnected. So, of course, this is a complicated situation and I can't fully get into it right now, but I think one of the things that could help you is you can plan a conversation out in advance. You can write down the things that you would like to express to someone, right? And how to express it in a healthier way. So, as we talked about assertiveness today, you could plan out a conversation with a person that you're having these doubts about. You can write down, okay, I'm feeling XYZ because something happened, or in just planning the conversation in advance, especially if you feel safe with that person, if you feel that that is someone that you have reason to trust, can help you have that conversation and express yourself. And of course, since this is a complicated situation, I would also recommend just going in for one-on-one therapy, because there are a lot of different things that are contributing to this, and to understand that, it would be really helpful to take a one-on-one session.
Okay, thank you. And one thing more, if I can add on. Like Amrita said, that I'm living with my parents at the moment, and what she said was so relatable to me, and so maybe, do you think this can be? I'm now actually what I'm now how I'm coping up with this is that I'm living with my parents, but I'm thinking in my mind that I'm living alone. What if my parents are not there? So I'm acting accordingly, in physical actions. So, do you think these circumstances can also be a reason for me, um, like being aggressive in my in with the people I really, who are really supporting me at the moment because they know my condition at the moment? Do you think that can also be um, a reason, maybe? And it's very good what you just told me, that I'll make a pre-plan. I'll have it, like I'll do that, the homework, that how am I supposed to express, myself in the talk. That is also I'm going to do for sure. But do you think this can be a reason? Because my
Yes.
mom manipulates things, she tells something to my father and then the whole family gets against me. And then I'm like alone in my room, and if I go out, they'll burst on me that, she's always out, she doesn't do anything. So all these, so do you think these are also, I mean, these can also be effective because for my anger?
Absolutely. Yes, I do think that those things could be contributing to how you
Okay.
feel and how you feel in your other relationships as well. Because family is the most basic unit of your social life. So the things that happened there, the things that happened as you were growing up, can definitely have an impact on your other relationships as well. And right, so before I take any more questions, I think let's try to wrap this up. We have gone an hour over time, and thank you all so much for staying till the end. Um, so if there are any more doubts, I will clear them at the end, right? So since we were talking about some triggering emotions and anger and remembering recent incidents and all of that, I'd just like to end this workshop with a short breathing exercise. So, if everyone could just take a comfortable position, you can sit or you can lie down if that's what you'd like to do. Um, whether you close your eyes or not is also up to you. If you're keeping them open, you can look at the slide or look at a empty spot on the wall, and place one of your hands on your stomach so that when we take deep breaths, we can feel it go all the way in and feel the stomach also rise. And we're just going to take a deep breath in for 6 seconds, and we're going to breathe out for 6 seconds. So let's begin. Take a deep breath in. And breathe out. And another breath in. And breathe out. One last breath in. And let it out. And whenever you feel ready, you can come back to this session. So, thank you so much everyone for being here and for participating so much. And I really appreciate all the active participation, the discussion. I also saw people helping each other in the chat. That was great. And I'll take questions in a bit, Ranjita. Just one moment, please. I'd like you to just tell you about MindTribe's counseling offerings before we end. So, at MindTribe, we do provide counseling services at a competitive rate. Like my rate currently is 600 rupees per 45-minute session. And as a token of our appreciation for your participation, we'll be offering 3 people the opportunity for the complimentary consultation. And keep an eye out on the WhatsApp group. These details will be communicated in the upcoming days. And MindTribe also offers other great resources for your mental health. So on top of the affordable counseling, we have free group therapies like the one on dysfunctional families that somebody just mentioned today. We have one on depression, body image, things like that are going on. So all of these details can be found on our Instagram page. We also have a lot of resources on our YouTube channel, like our past workshops, guided meditations and podcasts. And if you ever have any question, anything you'd like to know, you can always reach out to us on email or WhatsApp. And at MindTribe, we are dedicated to nurturing mental health and well-being with that focus on accessibility and excellence. So thank you all so much for being here. And if yes, we do have internships as well. You can find that on our website. And right, if anybody has any questions, you guys can stay back. Otherwise, the workshop is over. And thank you so much for being here and for all the feedback as well. Just going to take a look back and see if there's any questions in the chat. Okay, there's a question about narcissism, but I can't really answer about narcissism. Maybe the past workshops can help you out with that. Alright. You can find our Instagram page by searching for MindTribe. And even on YouTube, we are MindTribe over there as well. And for additional resources, Dr. Prerna Kohli also has her own website and Instagram page. So she also posts blogs and everything related to mental health. Thank you so much for staying till the end. I hope you all have a nice day, and